Well, good afternoon and welcome everybody. Jason Barnes with Genesis Chiropractic Software, and with me, I can't say as always because it's been a while since we've been together. It's Jessica Pankos, the head of our training and help desk teams here, and I'm excited to be back in the same room. With the amount of travel that we've had recently, being back in the same state actually is kind of nice. So. But it's been exciting. We've been out visiting a lot of our practices, and I know we've even met some of you guys that have been on the calls. So thank you for joining us. We're going to give it just another moment here. Well, great. And then we're just going to get started then. And if you do have a question, though, please use your chat. Jess, where do they get that again?
If you do not see the chat on the left-hand side, just open there for you. Up at the top will be a button that says Show Chat. And once you click on that, the chat window will appear on your left-hand side. And down at the bottom, you'll be able to type in any of your questions.
Okay. So looking forward to today because some newer things that I've heard that people have not been made aware of as far as our software is concerned and our service. And then some things that even though people knew we had, I found that were not being used to their fullest potential. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce the topic for today. We're going to be talking about insurance verifications, the different ways that we can do those, the service that we can provide. Everyone, I think, knows why they're so important. And then we're also going to talk about authorizations and referrals as well. So under this umbrella, really it all comes down to, am I going to get paid for the services that I'm performing? When I have insurance verification and it's not done correctly, I wish I could tell you that no matter what information you got or the source you got that information from, it would always be 100% reliable. But I think there are probably a number of people listening to this right now nodding their head when I say, even if you're in touch with the insurance company, you're not always going to get 100% accurate information. Aside from that, authorizations that you have to obtain, how to be notified of those authorizations, and the referrals themselves that you're going to get. We're going to go over the nuts and bolts of how you're actually going to record that information in the system, and more importantly, how we can coach you to help the system remind you when you're running up against situations where somebody's not going to be covered. And if they're not covered, what you can do and how you can be prompted to actually have conversations, with those patients. Now, for those of you running all cash practices, there are certain times where authorizations are still needed. Referring doctors are still needed, but very, very rare. This is mostly for our insurance, our clients who actually are going to see patients with insurance and bill to insurance. But that transition over to cash is also super important, and there's a few things about care plans that can be discussed as well. So actually, to jump right into it, we're actually going to get right into a patient, all right? And our favorite patient, well, maybe not our favorite, Jess, but
the one we use a lot.
The one we use all the time is our Genesis patient. And we're in our regular schedule here, and we're going to click on this patient tab, and we're going to zoom in just a little bit for clarity's sake here. And so, Jess, I'm going to ask you in a moment here to help us out with the actual anatomy of these sorts of things. But before we do that, you're in the scheduler, and you have a patient that walks through the door who is not covered by insurance anymore, is one situation we can go over, has an authorization that's run out, which is a second situation, or you have a referral that is only good for X number of visits or for a certain date range. Those are the main scenarios that we're going to cover today. And then we're going to go over how we can set up the notifications, which will help you guys be made aware of these situations and what you can do with those notifications. So, Jess, can you help us?
Sure. All right. So any of the authorizations, any of the referrals, they're all going to go on this Referral tab. That way the system is able to, as best it can, help you out and automatically apply the appropriate referrals and authorizations to a claim when it's created. So when you go into this Referral tab, a lot of times you'll have a default row that just has pretty much no information, no real information anyway. It has, some basic dates from the beginning of time to the end of time and a whole lot of allowed visits. If you do not see this, that just means that you don't have a blank row that really isn't doing anything for you.
Nothing to be troubled?
Nothing to be troubled with. Just hit the Create New button down at the bottom. And I'm actually, I think we're going to open this up in Search Patients just because.
A little bit bigger for our presentation?
Yeah, just so I can make it bigger. Make it a little easier to see the bottom half, which is where you actually fill in all the information on the Referral tab. The top part shows you the information that has been entered, gives you a list of all the past ones and all of that, but down at the bottom is where you're going to actually fill in the information. So down at the bottom, just so you know, I am on our beta server. The fields have been moved around a little bit. This version should be released within the next month to all the app servers. These fields do still exist on the app servers right now. They just might be in a different location, but they are still on this page.
So aesthetically a little bit better, but functionality is the same. And if anyone's a little puzzled about what we mean when we say beta servers, we usually release a new feature or something that's a new design out to a small population of people, making sure that it's working before we get everybody else exposed to it. So our beta server is just that one tool that we use to release things, new features out to you guys a little bit more safely.
All right. So up at the top, you're going to have the, this OAR stands for Order Authorization / Referral. And you're going to put in your description, your number, your note to yourself about what this is about, depending on what type of item you're entering. Then you're going to go down and fill in the Order Authorization Referral. What type of claims does this apply to section? So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to select the checkbox for the option or options that item that you're entering applies. Is it an authorization? Is it a referral? Is it both? What is it? So let's, for our sake, just choose an authorization. And then you get down to the next field. Next field for CPTs, it's usually used for authorizations. It can be left blank. What this is if a specific CPT or CPTs are authorized, you would fill that in here. That way the system can assist you in making sure the authorization only goes on those specific CPTs. If they gave no specific procedures that the authorization was limited to, you could leave this blank. You could fill it in with the word all in all capital letters. It will do the same thing. It'll apply to the claims in general, not specific CPTs. If you are going to fill in CPTs, you separate them by a comma.
So what if they forget some of this direction that we're giving them today, but really want to put in authorizations and referrals in the future? How could they get the type of direction that you're giving them in a different way?
The help page in the system. Up at the top of the referral tab in general, there's a little question mark, and if they click on that, they will get the referral help page, which goes into all the different fields and basic descriptions of what those fields should have.
A lot of information being shared today, and if somebody's taking notes, just to know that you can get a little bit of that information. Actually, all of the information we're sharing today should be available there as well.
Yeah. All right. So now you're going to go to the start date and end date, and you're going to fill in the date range that the doctor or the payer or whoever gave you. If they did not give you any, you can leave these default dates. It just means that the referral or authorization will never end because of the date range. It'll end because of other reasons like allowed visits being used up, but it'll never run out due to the date range. I'm going to skip the next field for just a second and just going to go straight down to the visits. This is where you enter the number of allowed visits that this authorization or referral authorizes. Again, if there was no limitation and instead it's limited by date range, you would leave this as a very high number of 5 nines, and the system would use the date range to end the referral instead. So you can use both, or you can use either or, and basically when either the date range or the allowed visits run out, then that referral or authorization can no longer be applied to any other claims. So once you fill that in, if you do change this, you will get a message. You'll get these little red outlines because now you have a whole lot of visits left, and it's higher than the number of allowed visits. So you do have to change that as well. But once you change that so the visits left does not exceed the allowed visits, those little red highlights will go away. And now you can go over to the last 3 fields that I haven't mentioned yet. These fields are not required. They are to assist you in having the authorization or referral go only on the claim you want it to go on. If you leave it blank, it's going to go on any claim that gets filled out on this patient account. If you start filling it in, you can select a payer. So if the patient has a primary, a secondary, if they're sometimes billing out cash, and it only needs to go on when it goes out to the actual insurance company, you can select the payer, and therefore this will only count down when the claim gets filled out to the payer. The rendering physician, the rendering practitioner really, allows you to set whose claim that this referral or authorization can go on. So if you have 2 doctors at your practice and you fill in one of them here, whenever that, let's say Dr. Smith, whenever Dr. Smith bills out for this patient, the referral or authorization can apply, but whenever Dr. Jones bills out, it would not apply.
We find this useful in a lot of practices that have more than one discipline or specialty. And, let's just say the physical therapy services are not covered, but the chiropractic services are covered. In this particular case, it makes a lot of sense to choose one or the other.
Yeah. Well, this one allows you to select a specific physician. If you're going to break it down by specialty, it might be better to use the rendering specialty taxonomy code field. This will say that it'll only apply to claims where the rendering practitioner is a chiropractor or a physical therapist or an occupational therapist, whatever it might be. You can use the code that's set up in the system by your coach to fill this out. Usually for chiropractors, that's 035, PTs is 065. If you have any other questions about who is set up, it is set up in your account, and your coach or the training team can assist you and let you know who's set up as what. But this will allow it, so if you have, 3 chiropractors and 2 physical therapists, and this authorization is only for chiropractic services, you can fill in that 035 here, and this claim will only apply to claims where the chiropractor is the rendering practitioner. That means whenever the physical therapist fills out, it will not apply and it will not use up a visit on that claim that should not be counted. So these last 3 fields are optional. They just try to assist you in helping the system automatically apply the referral or authorization when it should.
It's all about setting it and forgetting it. So if you set this up right, the technology itself should do the thinking for you.
Yes. You can also use this if you have 2 authorizations, one for example, chiropractic and one for PT. Set one up for chiropractic and one up for PT in this rendering specialty field. That way the system can actually automatically apply the correct authorization for you. If you have 2 authorizations and there's no difference between them, there's no setting in any of these 3 fields to indicate when one should be used versus the other, the system cannot choose and you will have to manually choose yourself. So filling these in, it's just really to get the system to work automatically for you. So once you have all of this filled in, you go down to the Order Authorization Referral Information field. This is where you're going to fill in the authorization number, the referral number that you got from the doctor or the payer. If it is a referral, you're going to fill in the NPI of the referring doctor. You can fill in their degree, their name, and all of that information. When you do save it, it will ask you if you would like to save this referring doctor for later use. So the next time, rather than having to fill in all of that information, you will be able to select them from a list. For the referral information, the authorization information, you're going to fill in the OAR number, and possibly the contact person and the contact info and the contact method for who you spoke to at the payer to get the authorization number. So if there's any problems, you know who to reach out to again later. And then you're just going to hit save, and everything that you save down here will show up at the top. And now this referral will be able to apply to any new claims that you create after the fact. This will not go and apply to any claims that have already been created. You would have to manually add it to those already created claims.
What if somebody had invalid claims on their workbench and they reopened those claims up? Any chance you know the answer to that one?
No, it happens during claim creation, so
Great.
It would have to be added manually.
Perfect.
And you can do that, added manually, on the HCFA tab of any claim. I'm just going to go into a random one here. On the HCFA tab of any claim.
Yeah, it's one of those things where if you have a process in your office and you know that there are certain patients or certain payers that require authorizations or referrals, you want to make sure that you have this process in place, because it's much easier to do up front and have the system apply it.
Then having to go back and add it afterwards, yes. You go down to the Referrals Authorizations field. It's underneath the CPTs. It's right above the service facility information. You click the link referral to claim. Any available referrals will be listed here. You select it and click the Add Selected Referrals. And that will add it to the claim, and then you can revalidate it, resubmit it, whatever you need to do, depending on what status that claim was in. Adding the claim automatically, or rather the referral or authorization automatically, when you come in here, the system will automatically select it as long as there's only one. If there's two and there's no way for the system to know whether or not it should apply one versus the other, you need to select it yourself. On the Info tab, there's going to be two drop-downs, one for referral, one for authorization. And you would select it here before billing out the claim. If there is an authorization that is CPT specific, you would click on the CPT up at the top right, and there's a patient authorization drop-down on this page as well. There is red messages up at the top of the screen letting you know if there's authorizations or referral, well, usually authorizations, that could apply, and you need to select one. So you should be stopped before you bill if you haven't actually selected one.
Well, so for us, like almost anything else that we do, it requires upfront effort for back-end peace of mind. And what we really recommend, and the best practice for almost every single one of our clients, is to come up with a rock-solid automatic process for putting patients in. And I can even be a little bit more specific. If there's a task checklist that you can set up for a patient that you know has a payer that requires authorizations, Medicaid is one of those things that comes to mind. And I'm sure, although I could not see you, I could hear some eyes rolling with regards to Medicaid. If you know that Medicaid is going to require an authorization, then we want to make sure that we're able to set up automatic tasks that open up to you guys to make sure that those authorizations are done. Because not only is it a low likelihood that you're going to get paid on all of your visits for Medicaid, but patient balances tend to accrue a little bit more rapidly. So you want to hedge your bets the best you can on getting paid from the insurance company. Now, this goes for any payer. What I'm saying is Medicaid is just one of those special cases. So we want to make sure that we're setting up those authorizations and referrals for every single patient that you need to. And if you need some help in figuring out how you can use those notifications, we're going to take, I'd say, a brief moment right now, go into that notification and show you how you can set up a not only a notification that pops up on your schedule, but also how to set up a checklist that could open up for you to make sure that the task is completed.
All right. So let's do the notifications first. So for that, for practice-wide, you're going to go to Configuration, Practice, Schedule, and you're going to go to the Notifications tab.
In a moment, you're going to go to the Notifications tab.
You're going to see any of the ones that have already been created. To create a new one, you're going to hit the blue plus sign. The fields that will open will either open to the right or underneath, depending on the size of your screen. Because we are zoomed in so much, ours are showing up underneath. First thing you're going to do, fill in a name. This is really just a way to identify this type of notification. There's some logs that this gets logged into when things change on it. And of course, it's going to show up in this list up above. So it just behooves you to name it something so you can find it easier later and you'll know what it means by that name. So if you do need to make any edits, you can just look through the list and find it rather than having to click on each individual one and look at the setup to determine which one you want. So give it a name for, patient needs off. The pop-up message is actually what's going to pop up on the schedule. So you want to give instruction to the front desk or whoever it might be.
Pretty basic stuff.
to what they need to do when this message comes up. So for this one, if we're saying that the patient needs an authorization, it's going to be something along the lines of patient needs
an authorization. Yeah, don't get creative or code-like.
No, the patients do not see this message. It's only up on the schedule. So just be straight and tell the front desk what they need to do. The next two fields are whether or not the kiosk should get the red screen of death is what I've heard it's called. Basically, if an alert is turned on and this patient-facing stop is turned on, if the alert goes off, the patient gets a message saying, see the front desk. If this is a type of alert that the patient does not need to go see the front desk about, you can just turn this off, and they will have no indication that an alert went off, but you can leave the pop-up messages, which is the next field underneath, on, which is to say still show it up on the schedule for the front desk to actually see what they're supposed to do. The next two fields, we have the ability to execute checklists. So checklists are a group of tasks.
Or just one. It could be just one. And in this particular case, the ones that we've set up for practices haven't been longer than a single task. So here it's you create a task and then you can make it specific to your office. I'll get really specific. If you have a front desk person named Jamie, he can be the one who gets this particular task, and you can set up this execute checklist, to go directly to Jamie saying this particular patient, it'll be attached to the patient, needs an authorization. And you can put whatever specificity you want in there. You can put a link to the website that's needed, the phone number that you're going to call, whatever it is. And even if you're going to create an XDoc, which is the next field, I'm just going to go into that one, Jess. We have the second part of our webinar here today is also about insurance verification, so I can't help but hit two birds with one stone here. We have lots of patients who need specific insurance verifications, and not only do you want to execute a checklist to have their insurance verified, but a lot of times you want to create a very specific document that needs to be filled out either by a member of your office or a member of our shared billing team that takes care of it. So you can see that verification, health insurance could be one of those things that you put in there. But even for an authorization, if there's a specific form that you want filled out in your office, and we've created a digitized form for that, you can do that as well, okay? I think that's all we need to say about that section. Should we get into the rules?
Yeah, all right. So once you fill in the rest of it, you're going to add the rules. And the rules are what determines when this alert should pop up. If you do not fill in a rule, then this alert's going to pop up every time the patient checks in. So you're going to go in to add rules, and you're going to get a list of all the different rules we have in our system. So for this type of thing, you probably want to do something along the lines of that it was their first visit since a certain date. And this can work for everyone because pretty much the first visit they come in will be the first visit since that date. So this is going to hit them and pop up on the front desk the first time the patient checks in. You might also want to limit it and say it's for specific payers.
So if you know, I'll go back to my Medicaid example. If you know the first visit for every single Medicaid patient that's listed needs to have an authorization in there, you can go ahead and say, all right, we're going to trigger this whenever there's a Medicaid patient.
Right. Now, this one, the primary payer rule, is the name of a payer. If it is for any Medicaid,
which there are many names and faces to Medicaid payers,
then perhaps the financial class would be better. Financial class groups payers. So all of Medicaid would fall under the Medicaid primary financial class. I think Medicaid is MA.
Correct.
BCBS is BCBS, Aetna is AET, Cigna is CIG. These are just some standard financial classes. Again, if you have any questions about what a payer specifically is, you can always ask. But this way, what this alert that I'm setting up right now, it has two rules. One saying that it's the patient's first visit since the beginning of August. And second, that they have a primary payer on their account where the financial class of that payer is Medicaid. So that means that any patient who checks in who has Medicaid on their primary tab, and it's the first time they're being seen since last August, or like pretty much last month, this alert will pop up to the front desk.
It's not enough to show you how to put the authorization in if we don't help you figure out how to do it for all the patients. So we're putting together a picture here for getting paid for all of your visits. And a great portion of that for your insurance patients is to make sure that you have automation set up for a great process to making sure that you don't forget.
Yes. One thing, when you are selecting multiple rules, both have to be true for the alert to go off. So it's not an either-or situation. They both have to be true, and then the alert will go off. Once you're done going through all of the rules and selecting the ones you want, you click Done Editing, and then there's a Save button at the lower right. And we do have a question mark on this page as well, where we do go into some definitions of all those rules if you have any questions about exactly what one of those rules means and how it works.
So guys, we've pretty much come to the end of basically the first two-thirds of our presentation today, which is about the authorizations and the referrals, and basically how you can do that. We're probably not going to revisit the notifications because it applies to the insurance verifications as well. So you can pretty much take everything that we've said in the context of creating automation to be notified when somebody needs insurance verifications done and apply it. And the next part that we're actually going to go into is how you're actually going to go about doing the insurance verifications. And there's two ways, manually and electronically. And I know one is really exciting and the other one's a necessary evil is how I would describe it. It's just nice to push a button, and it's awful to sit on the phone or go to a website and try and interpret what these
well,
payers have done.
Some of it still requires some interpretation. All right, so this is our test demo account, so that is why you're seeing this big red message up at the top. The payer we have on this patient account is not a real payer. But on the patient's account, on the Verify tab, there is an electronic eligibility tab. It's the first tab that opens. You can select the service type you wish to verify their coverage for. Select the payer on the account. If they have primary and secondary, you can choose between the two. And then there's a drop-down where you can select to choose whether you're verifying whether the practice is, they're eligible for insurance benefits under the practice or under a specific practitioner. In general, most of the time, unless you know a specific payer wants the doctor, in general, you start off by doing it under the practice. And then you're going to hit the check eligibility button down here. And underneath that, you'll have the history of all of the attempts of getting a verification. And if they actually came back with anything because it was a real patient, the verification would be over here on the right-hand side. So you would always be able to see the history of all the verifications that you've done in the past over here on the right. The response back is 5 to 10 seconds. Some payers, I want to say UHC, but it might be Aetna instead, I know go down Thursday mornings and don't offer this Thursday mornings. So you might see an error message up at the top right, Thursday mornings for that one payer. But in general, you'll get any responses back here, and the verifications will be listed down here, including, you know, what their deductible is, how much it is, coverage dates, you know, out of pocket, in network, all of that stuff.
And some are much more descriptive than others. So we give you everything that the payer is offering in their online verification. So if there's more that you need, then you're going to have to go to the manual eligibility format, because there's very little leverage that we have. Very little is actually an overstatement.
Yeah, we have no leverage.
Yeah, I don't recall ever having any leverage for us to be able to change what they're giving.
The payer offers what they offer, and that is it. And they could stop offering it at any time. So for specifics, instead, you can ask the team to reach out and manually call up the payer and get the verification. For that, you first need to have your coach set it up. It does require some setup initially, and actually the electronic eligibility does as well, but for the most part, that is usually handled during your enrollment with us. Even if you say that you're probably not going to be using it, we usually enroll you with all the ones who don't require any specific enrollments anyway.
We don't charge any of our clients for this enrollment fee. However, there is a small cost to our organization that we do not pass along. So we have not automatically gone out and done the enormous amount of work to actually get every single one of our providers enrolled. So if you are interested in this, there will be no charge, but there is some work involved, and usually a form that you have to sign, and we will get you enrolled for electronic verification.
Okay. So for the paper verification, for the manual, again, there's still setup, but it's not something we do beforehand. So if you would like that, you need to let us know. Once it is set up, you're going to go to More, Verify, and you'll see up here you can also do the manual eligibility from this page as well, or sorry, the real-time eligibility, the electronic. You can do that from this page as well as in the patient account, but you also have the ability to do manual eligibility. This tab only appears once you've been set up. So once you're set up, you can go to this tab. Any of the payers that are on the patient account, primary, secondary, tertiary, will be listed here, and they'll have a checkbox next to them. You check the box for the one you want to verify, or ones you want to verify, and once you check a box, a submit button shows up. You click that button, and it opens up a task to your team, to your eligibility verification team, to go and get the verification completed. And as it says right on this page, the turnaround time is 1 to 2 business days on the manual verification.
Gotcha. And that setup that Jess is talking about right now is done prior to this being turned on for your office. And we first agree on what information we're going to find out when we make that phone call. And so we do have a cost associated with this. Our entry level for this is $6 per verification. We do have people that we charge as much as $15 per verification because they've got 6 specialties and they want 30 CPT codes checked for each one of those specialties. So we have negotiated these costs in the future, or in the past, and we will do so in the future based on your needs.
So once the verification is done, going on to that manual verification tab and hitting submit opens a task with the requester, whoever is the one who logged in and went to more verify. So once it is completed, it will be pended back to that person, letting them know that the verification is completed and the verification will be attached to that task.
Okay. So the only thing that's left, Jess, is really going over if they want to do any manual verifications themselves.
So if they want to do any manual verifications, it's really going to be probably using the schedule notifications to automatically create an XDoc, to automatically open a task to someone to reach out to do the verification. The XDoc will already exist on the Doc tab. So that person will just have to go in here, find the one that says verification, click on it. This form will have all the different fields that you wanted to be filled out, and that person, whoever it is at your office, will simply fill out this information and hit save when it's done, and this verification form is already a part of the patient's account, and it can be referenced back whenever it's needed.
Yep. So recapping on just insurance verifications, more and more our major meds are offering the electronic verifications, which is fantastic. There's a button click and typically a few seconds to wait. You can do the manual verifications yourself, or we have a process where we sell the service of actually doing it for you, and you have to go through the steps that Jess just outlined in order to engage that process. We went over pretty thoroughly all of our referrals, authorizations, and sometimes the need for an occasional order. And so we want to make sure that not only do you know how to do those things, but you know how to create those notifications and the workflow associated with making sure that that stuff happens on a regular basis. So if there are any questions at this point, we're really kind of knocking up on the end of our presentation here. If you could please chat them in, and we would be happy to address them to the best of our ability. And if not, we will probably just end here in a moment or two, thanking all of you for your time. Jeff, I ask you this often. Do you get a lot of these questions in your day-to-day?
Not too much. It comes up every once in a while. Usually with some confusion, like, I want manual verification. How do I do that? Or, you know, it's supposed to be set up, and I go and look. I'm like, let's get you set up.
Let's figure that part out.
Yeah, because the tab doesn't exist. So it's a quick and easy way to say, nope, you haven't gotten far enough along in the process yet. Most likely your coach is still working on the ticket to get the team set up to be able to access the tasks that you send them.
Yeah.
Because we won't turn on that tab until it can actually be seen by, the task can actually be seen by someone.
Yeah, I've noticed a bunch of practices get excited, though, about the electronic verifications. A practice in Philadelphia who was thrilled because they had their payer that just came online offering it that represents most of their patients. So we do get those, but we also have people who have almost no.
Yeah, I mean, we even have a setting for some practices that want it that will automatically do the electronic eligibility once a month.
Yep.
So for those who want to keep a close eye on the deductibles and whatnot.
Yeah. Well, if there are no more questions, I think we're at the end here. I'd like to thank everyone for their time today, and I hope you guys were able to learn something, and more importantly, I hope none of you end up working for free. Thanks, guys, and have a great afternoon.